remember that. Remember. Hey, everybody out there. Jack, you wanted to introduce us or no? Well,
wow, what a sloppy way to start the show, J Train. Don't you take instructions? I told you to start it off and you said okay, and now you choke when you come on live? Come on, man. Get with it. This is J Train and Jack Hirsch doing the Mac and Jack and James sports memory shows. If you want to talk about a J Train, I'm more of a J Train than James is. I've been around longer. But this is a memory show where we go back in time, talk about some of the sports legends of the past. And, you know, when we're done with that, any time left over, there's a lot of regular sports news that James and myself are going to get into. And today we're going to have two sports legends in particular with James and myself. James is going to talk about first John Mackey, the great tight end of the Baltimore Colts, one of the best tight ends, in my opinion, to ever play the game. And I'm going to talk about my boyhood idol after that, Mickey Mantle. But let's get it started, J Train, with John Mackey.
Okay, I won't follow this up. And my apologies for that bad introduction there.
You fumbled, James. We called the play in the huddle. We called the play in the huddle. Then I tried to hand it off, and the ball hit off you because you didn't have your hands to grab the ball. But the other team didn't recover. Someone fell on the ball for us. I think it was Max, so we still have possession.
And in this juncture, what I'm going to do is the same thing that John Mackey did in the Super Bowl when he caught the deflection and went 75 yards for a touchdown. So, look, John Mackey, I think, even though it wasn't during my era, just all my research and what I've watched with this guy, to me, I agree with you, is one of the one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tight end to play the game. The reason why I say that because he revolutionized the position at the time when it was played. It wasn't like even though he didn't end up with the most yards as a tight end, it's just the way he played the game. He started out at Syracuse. He played 3 seasons there, and he totaled what I would say about 427 yards. 300 and some odd yards was in his junior season, and he had about 5 to 10 touchdowns, I believe. And look, this guy he wasn't the prototypical tight end. He also changed positions at Syracuse University, where he went tight end, he went running back, and he also went wide receiver. In his first year there, he played with the Heisman Trophy winner Ernie Davis. And look, they went to 3 Liberty Bowls, and then he got drafted as the 19th pick in the second round in 1963. As a rookie, he had 35 catches and 726 yards, which is a lot, and he averaged 20 yards per catch. He also ran kickoff returns and averaged 30 yards per catch as well. And he played one of those seasons he played 10 seasons in the NFL with the Baltimore Colts, which they went to Super Bowl 5. They went to 2 Super Bowls. They went to Super Bowl 3, and he didn't really have any stats or played a significant role in that game. And defensively, the Jets really dominated that game. And let me see. Hold on one second.
Well, Super Bowl 3, when the Jets upset the Baltimore Colts, it's the only Super Bowl that the Jets went to in their history. And the thing about that game was, being as big a Jet fan as I am, I got to tell you, the Baltimore Colts really did have the better team, but not on that day. You could lose everything on that day. We've seen it happen in other games and other elements of sports, like the New England Patriots when they were unbeaten. They had a better team than the New York Giants, but the Giants were a little better the day of the Super Bowl. When the Russians played the United States in the Olympics, when the Lake Placid 1980, the Russians had a much better team. And Herb Brooks, their coach, said it best. If we play them 10 times, they might win 9. Yeah, they absolutely would have won 9 out of the 10. But the one game out of the 10 that they could lose, they lost. I mean, what are the chances of that happening? But John Mackey, I remember in Super Bowl III, it was a huge upset. Now, the Colts were favored by 18 points, James. 18 points. And John Mackey came up with the best line after the game. He said, we thought we had the game won beforehand. And he says, when you've already thought you won the game before it's played, you've got trouble. You're in trouble then. And that was the Colts' mindset. They just had to play the game to collect their championship. They didn't have to earn their championship. They had to play it. And John Mackey wasn't a factor in that game, ironically. I don't know why. Earl Morrall, was their starter. Johnny Unitas was the real starter, but he was injured and he came in the game late on, as a hurt quarterback. He got hurt during the season, but he was ineffective. But John Mackey, great blocking tight end, James. That's the thing about him too. And
yeah,
I'm going to tell you who a little, and then I know you have more on John Mackey, but I'm going to give you a comparison reputation-wise. He was the Travis Kelce, George Kittle of his time, of his era. Him and Mike Ditka. Those were the two famous, really tight ends. There were others too, but I think Mackey and Ditka kind of led the class as far as fame went with tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, he amassed 331 receptions, 5,236 yards, and he averaged 15 yards per catch, which was second all time at the time when he retired. He got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in '92. He had 38 touchdowns as well. He won that. He helped win that championship with that deflection reception, which someone did in Super Bowl V. Yes, deemed as the original immaculate reception in '71. But yeah, they went on to win 16-13 against the Cowboys with the last second.
The name of that game was, they called it after the Blunder Bowl because of all the turnovers. It was called the Blunder Bowl. But that'll give you an idea of how good that Colt team was that lost to the Jets. 2 years after losing to the Jets, the Colts were not the same team that they were. I don't want to say they were a shell of themselves, but they were a faded team. They were long in the tooth compared to what they were, yet they won a Super Bowl. Past their prime, they won a Super Bowl. And, and the ironic part about it, everybody made fun of the Colts and the Cowboys in that game, calling it, like I said, the Blunder Bowl, how bad both teams were. They won championship caliber. But the very next season, the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, and the Colts come one game away from going to the Super Bowl. They lost in the AFC Championship game to the Miami Dolphins, then lost to the Cowboys. That was the start of 3 Super Bowls in a row that the Dolphins went to. And the season after that, they won beaten, and then they repeated as champions. So we never think of the Dolphins having gone to 3 Super Bowls in a row. We just think of those 2 seasons, the unbeaten one and when they repeated, but we never really think about them going to the Super Bowl the year before the unbeaten, run.
I mean, I agree with you, Jack, in regards to them being long in the tooth. I mean, this was at this time when they went to the Super Bowl. This was the 9th season for John Mackey, and he was almost a shell of himself towards that time in his career. I mean, if you look at the stats, he only had like 110 yards for the season. Maybe I think some was due to injury because he hurt his knee, and he got put on IR. Because he wanted to get traded. He already lost his starting position around that time, and he wanted to get traded. And he was also the NFL PA. And he was the first NFL PA. He was the first NFL PA for the NFL. But that position was I think meant to just like kind of just keep everybody in the cage, so to speak. It wasn't, but he actually utilized the position to actually get things done for them, and he sort of not just revolutionized his position at tight end, but he did the same thing with the position for the players as the NFLPA president, and he got fringe benefits for the players, getting additional $12 million after he retired, because he ended up playing one season for San Diego, and that didn't amass anything. And then and because of the knee injury, he ultimately retired. But as an NFLPA, Jack, I wanted to mention this about him as well, is that he also was able to, because of his own personal conditions, which he had dementia in his later years in his life, early onset, and he was able to get, because of around the time his wife went to Paul Tagliabue at the time, which was the NFL
commissioner.
Commissioner, yes, exactly. And they with Gene Upshaw, the current at the time president for the NFLPA, was able to get something called the 88 plan, which was the plan. It was named after him and his number, to get financial monies to help contribute to pay for aftercare, nursing care or adult care, which like wasn't nothing to sneeze at back then, because it was like in 2007. This was in 2007. It was 88,000 per year for the per player, whoever had any issues. And when he died, unfortunately, it was shown to have CTE. He had CTE as well. So, I mean, what a great guy. I mean, on the field and off, it looks like, I mean, in regards to what he contributed to the game of football. And I was impressed. And the NFL had a top 10 tight ends, and he came in second. Most of the peers, including people like Don Shula, named him as number one. That's the best they ever seen, because the guy, he ran legit 4.5.
Well, Don Shula coached him for a while. And
Absolutely.
when Don Shula left to go to the Dolphins after being coach of the Colts, I think for 9 years, the Colts won the Super Bowl. Shula never won a Super Bowl with the Colts. And Shula's the winningest coach of all time. And he's called a genius and all this. And Shula was a great coach, don't get me wrong, because his teams won every year. Maybe they didn't win championships, but they were going to the playoffs every year. He kept a winning program going for like over 30 years. So Shula was a great coach, but I don't want to hear this Superman, this and that, because the Colts won the Super Bowl the year after Shula left to go to Miami. But of course, Shula kind of got his revenge the year after that. The Dolphins beat the Colts in the Super Bowl. Then Shula had that, great 3-year run, with the Dolphins. The kind of kudos to him. But it's an interesting thing with John Mackey. He was the president of the Players Association. And when you did that and you were a player, you were putting your own job at risk, because the owners didn't like that. The owners didn't like the players getting all these benefits, fighting for this and that. They just wanted to give the players their salary, case closed. They were against unionizing and that whole bit. So Mackey was hurting himself individually by doing that. And on top of it, also, I don't remember hearing anything about it, but just putting 2 and 2 together. This is the 1970s. It's bad enough a player is arguing to the owners on behalf of his fellow players. That doesn't invoke the warmest feelings with those owners, but especially in the 1970s, it being a black man doing that had to be a certain amount of contempt, I'm sure, with certain owners. I don't.
He was blackballed. They all colluded against him. Just that they was said, they put him on waivers, and no one.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And the probably result with the players' union, had he been nice, not been part of it, just gone along, spoke well of the owners, just collected his paycheck, I'm sure that wouldn't have happened. Okay?
Yeah, it took one defensive coach on the team of the San Diego Chargers to speak up for him and to collect him, obviously to get him on. I mean, mind you, he was at the tail end of his career as well, but they did
when
black.
you're a legend like that, you find a home, you catch on with someone for a season or two, when you're that great a player. Just compare it to today. If Travis Kelce gets to the point where he's washed up, he has you feel he has nothing left. There'll be one team out there who'll find a roster spot from figuring he in little flashes could show something, the name, the impact. But yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
John Mackey, great, great tight end. And he played with great players on the Colt teams, like legendary players, Johnny Unitas, Bubba Smith, Bobby Orr, Tom Matty, Mike Curtis,
Deacon
Rich
Jones.
Cole. Yeah, who?
Deacon Jones.
That was Deacon Jones on the Chargers?
Yeah. No.
Oh,
I'm
I'm talking
sorry.
about the Colts. Deacon Jones
Yeah,
was
he was
on
in
the
the Colts.
Rams.
Yeah, he was in the Colts. Yeah. Also, was it with the Rams? No, I'm sorry. My apologies. You're right. He was with the Rams. You're right. What am I thinking?
I'm not sure what Tom. I'm not sure. I don't remember what John Mackey went after he left the Colts.
No,
I have
he
no
went to the Chargers.
recollection.
You're right. You're right. He didn't play. Deacon Jones didn't play with the Colts. He played with the Rams. But when you
Yeah.
said,
So what the heck are you talking about, James Deacon Jones? Come on. I mean,
well,
get it. Yeah, get it. Deacon Jones, the fearsome foursome,
the fear
since we're on
forcing, right?
memory. Him,
Yeah,
Merlin Olsen, Lamar Lundy, and Rosie Greer, the fearsome foursome. Yeah,
absolutely.
man, they had one of the great defensive fronts in NFL history, yet they couldn't get by the Green Bay Packers. They couldn't get by the Minnesota Vikings. They never quite got to a Super Bowl. So
But
yeah,
some
but
accolades, I'll just give you this and we can go on to your next step. John Mackey, obviously, he was a Super Bowl champion. They had opportunities to get there. They went to like 4 AFC championships, but they had and he lost the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 3. But he had
well,
3
three, that was the NFL. That wasn't quite the AFC
AFL, right?
place, right? 2 years. Super Bowl 5 is when you had an AFC and an NFC. What had happened in Super Bowl 3? It was the AFL against the NFL. So they decided on a merger,
Right.
after that or right before that. And by the time Super Bowl 5 came around, it was ironic that the Baltimore Colts, who were part of the NFL during their whole history, were now part of the AFC. In other words, the AFL teams that were absorbed into the AFC took 3 NFL teams on. And the 3 NFL teams were, oh boy, the Colts were one of them. So now the Colts are playing the Cowboys, and we lost the AFL NFL field because in reality, everyone felt it was 2 NFL teams now playing in the championship game because the Colts beat the Raiders in the AFC championship game. Had the Raiders beat the Colts and had they gone on to play the Cowboys, it would have felt like a continuation of the AFL NFL. And a lot of us, James, felt deprived that we lost that rivalry, the AFL NFL. It was kind of gone for good. It was fun, when it lasted, the upstart AFL coming on. It was kind of like the ABA if they were playing against the NBA. But once, the NBA absorbed some ABA teams, it didn't have that same feel as
Right.
before. Could you imagine ABA against NBA? You have Dr. J representing the ABA, Rick Barry. You bring them onto the court to compete against the best of the NBA. It's going to be darn competitive, and the NBA would be nervous, against this upstart, league.
And the world would have had more viewership of a person like Dr. J because a lot of those games didn't have network TV. So you would have seen a lot more of the stardom that was there or versus the folklore or legend of Dr. J. I couldn't really believe that there wasn't a lot of footage of that of him back then. It was just a lot of, hearsay. Most people just talked about him.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. But you realize it's been less than 50 years where the NBA has been well known. It seems a lot less than 50 years. Not until Bird and Magic did it really take off, in the early to mid 80s. So, because the 1980 NBA championship series between the Lakers and the 76ers, and the 76ers had Dr. J, the Lakers had Magic Johnson. The finals, game 6, where the Lakers wrapped it up, that was on delayed tape. Delayed tape. Network TV didn't even show it live. Isn't that hard to believe now?
That's unreal, right? All the money that's involved there, you would think that. I mean, obviously they didn't have that in their mindset back then, to say that like, wow, viewership is what brings in the dollars. Obviously, share of revenue. Now you got so much money now. People are making hand over fist. I mean, when I say people, I mean players. So it's just unreal that that wasn't thought of back then, or at least it wasn't implemented. But getting back to just the finals of, I mean, the stats of John Mackey. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, NFL 60s All-Decade Team, All 50 Anniversary Team, and 100 Team, Baltimore Ravens Ring of Honor, and he also has his number 88 retired in Syracuse. Great player.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you a question. It has to do with the Baltimore Colts, the Indianapolis Colts. The Baltimore Colts had this great theme song. I mean, you got to Google it. I'll just hum it. Like the Baltimore Colts moved the ball across the line. It's an eloquent song. And it was their kind of fight song that the Baltimore Colts always used to play back in the day. Now, tradition-wise, what carries more weight? The Baltimore to think of the history of the Baltimore Colts. Is it the Baltimore Ravens because they're in the same city, or is it the Indianapolis Colts? Because I remember Peyton Manning saying, when he was in the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, he wishes more of the guys from the Baltimore Colts, would embrace them, the tradition and the whole thing. And I'm thinking, you do have the Colts name, but you're Indianapolis. And what bothers me, and I don't know if this bothers you, James, when a franchise moves, I hate when they take the name with them. Indianapolis should not have taken the Colt name with them. And say what you want about Art Modell, the Cleveland Brown owner, when he moved to Baltimore, moved the team, he didn't take the Brown name. He didn't make them the Baltimore Browns. He left the name for Cleveland, for the fans to still have that name. I hate it when a team kind of takes the name.
I agree with that sentiment because I lived in Houston for a number of years and I was a huge Houston Oilers fan. And when they left, they took the name with them and went, and then ultimately changed. And now the name is just defunct because at the time when they had the name, I think that the Houston Texans came out as a franchise before they changed the name back to the name to the Titans. I'm not sure. I think that's what happened. And then that name is just, I would hope, you would think that Houston would go ahead and take that name back and just use it. But I don't know what the issue is. But I miss the Oilers name. It was a great name. And, it was nostalgic. With players like Mike, was it Mike Rozier? And who was it? I can't even think. Warren Moon, Earl Campbell, guys like that. Bum Phillips, the coach. Just names like that. It's nostalgic. But you're right. What would the Cleveland? I couldn't even imagine another name for that team versus being other than the Browns. It's just nostalgic with all the great names, great teams they had with Jim Brown, Otto Graham. It's just hard to really just say that I can hear Cleveland dogs, I guess. They are the dog pound, but it'd be a weird name still instead of being the Browns.
You're making me think now the teams that never went to a Super Bowl, and Houston never went the city to a Super Bowl. Okay, the Oilers or the Texans, and maybe this will be the Texans. Yeah, I'm just saying it because I predicted in the beginning of the year that they were going to the Super Bowl. The Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. They certainly, a setup for finally this year. Cleveland Browns have never been to a Super Bowl. So there's certain like cities who've never been there. I mean, the Browns did have an NFL championship in 1964, a few years before the Super Bowl came into existence. That's why sometimes I think to myself, it just wasn't called a Super Bowl, but they won an NFL championship. Like we're hearing about the Chiefs this year, and everyone is saying they have a chance to make history, being the first team in history, to three-peat, three Super Bowls in a row. Well, the Packers won Super Bowls one and two. They didn't win Super Bowl three, but the year before the Super Bowl, they won the NFL championship. Isn't that the same thing as three in a row, the Chiefs? The year before was called the Super Bowl, they won it, and then they won Super Bowl one and two. So
and not only that, when you mentioned the Packers, they won several championships. I think they won like 7 of 8 before that, or something like some dominant number. It was unreal.
5 out of 7, before, But I'm just saying the way history sometimes plays out. A lot of times it's circumstance. A lot of times there's like a bit of luck going on. Like you even look in baseball, James. All the championships won, with the Yankees, this and that. Well, if the Yankees had the playoff format in past years that they had today, would they have still won the championships? Perhaps
Probably
they
not.
would have. Yeah, but the one year they didn't win, 1954, they won where they got beat out. At that point, there wasn't a playoff format. You just went to the World Series, American National League. The Yankees won more games than they won the years they won the championships during the regular season, yet, didn't go to the World Series, which is a good segue into talking about my boyhood idol, Mickey Mantle. Okay? And Mickey Mantle, I'm going to tell you, James, of all the athletes, okay, in my lifetime, the only one I think you can really put on Mickey Mantle's level completely, who maybe surpasses him, would be perhaps Michael Jordan. Perhaps. Okay? I mean, we'll agree. The big name athlete now who's really popular, who's retired, would be Derek Jeter. Would we agree with that? Very popular. Derek Jeter's very, very big. But we both agree that Michael Jordan's clearly bigger than Derek Jeter. I mean, clearly. So take my word on it when I tell you Mickey Mantle, Derek Jeter, both Yankees. It's not really close as far as who's more iconic, who's bigger, who was more popular amongst Yankee fans. Okay? I mean, Mickey Mantle was worshipped. The difference is a guy like Derek Jeter's idolized. Mickey Mantle was worshipped. I mean, as a little kid, there was his charisma was off the charts. He was like this mythical figure. And when Mickey Mantle would get up to bat, and I'll make a comparison, it would be like Aaron Judge today. If you're a kid and you're a big Yankee fan, and your mother calls you to come to the table for dinner, and Aaron Judge is up, you're still by the TV. You go, one moment. You have to wait until the at-bat is done. I don't know, have you ever had an athlete in your lifetime? You just have to wait until he's done with his at-bat, his possession or whatever. I mean, that was Mickey Mantle. I mean, he was just, and Mickey Mantle was the guy, and he was hurt a lot. Unfortunately, it happened in 1951 when he came to the big leagues. He was in right field, and Joe DiMaggio was in center field. And ironically, Willie Mays, who was a rookie, hits a fly ball. And Casey Stengel, the Yankee manager, told Mickey Mantle, who was a kid, you get every fly ball out there because DiMaggio isn't quite the outfielder he once was because he lost a couple of steps. So a fly ball is hit to right center. Mantle's running after. And at the last moment, DiMaggio says, I got it. So Mantle pulls up quickly and his knee explodes. There was like a drain pipe out there. which is ridiculous because in this day and age, the field would have been made, like safer. And he was hurt. And before that, Mickey Mantle reportedly was the fastest play on two wheels. I mean, the way he would run down to first, he was considered lightning, like the fastest guy in the game. And he was never quite the same way again. But it's funny. We live in an era of analytics. And don't get me wrong, if you're asking people who they would take, Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays, for example, and Willie Mays to me is on the short list of the greatest players ever. Willie Mays was spectacular as far as I'm concerned. You hear about five-tool player who could do everything. That was Willie Mays. But according to the analytics, Bill James, if you're going strictly on Bill James analytics, Bill James said in their primes, Mickey Mantle was the better player, and it wasn't even close between him and Willie Mays. That was Bill James. And the reason he said it because it was about on-base percentage. And at the time, Mickey Mantle was a strikeout machine, but he was also a walk machine. He would continuously get on base, walking because they pitched him very carefully. And they asked Mickey Mantle once, and he was a very modest guy. He was a troubled guy. He had his issues, and believe me, he wasn't my idol as a person from everything I saw, but as a player and as a mythical Yankee figure. But Mickey Mantle was humble. They'd ask him who was better between you, Hank Aaron, and Willie Mays. I guess they were better than I was. But he'd always talk honestly. He'd say for a couple of seasons, I won't say I was better, but I was just as good. And he was probably referring to 1956 when he won the Triple Crown, 52 homers, 130 RBIs, and he hit 353 in his triple. And then the next season, he hit 365. That's batting average. I'm not sure what his on-base percentage is, probably through the roof because he walked a ton of times, as well. But, he would be amongst the league leaders in walks every year and strikeouts too. But we look at the game, James, so much differently now than we looked at it at the time. Did you ever play Little League Baseball?
A little bit, not much.
But they judged you on hits. I mean, this was the mentality at the time, and I learned it when I was playing baseball. The beginning of high school and so on. I was given a shot to play a game, and I get up 3 times during the game. I walk. I ground out to the infield, but it got the guy in from third base, and I strike out. And I'm told that, the manager, sorry, you didn't get it done. We have to go to so-and-so. Now, at that time, it made sense. I was 0 for 2, big deal. I walked. I hit a little ground ball. So what if I got the guy in from third base, but I struck out 1 time? So not good enough. Now, in this day and age, it's looked at, you had success in 2 or 3 at bats. That's good. But it wasn't looked at that time because people like to look at batting average and, and they looked at stuff like 1-loss record, not looking at ERA, not looking at situations, beyond that. But Mickey Mantle was considered the leader of the Yankees all those years. When he came up to them in 1951, they'd already won the World Series in 1949, 1950, but they won it in 51, 52, 53, 54. They lost it to the Cleveland Indians, won 111 games that year. But then in 1955, the Yankees are back in the series, and the Brooklyn Dodgers beat them the one year the Yankees didn't get there. And Mickey Mantle was out Game 7 that the Yankees lost 2-0. So you wonder whether he could have made a difference. They won it in 56, the World Series. They lost it in 57. They won it in 58. They weren't there in 59. And then they went to the World Series 5 years in a row. And in 1961, he had that iconic year. Him and Roger Maris were going neck and neck to try to break Babe Ruth's record, of 60 homers to get to 61. Mantle was injured late in the year, and he finally tapped out at 54. But no one talks about this. Roger Maris hit ahead of Mickey Mantle, so he was getting pitches to hit. Roger Maris didn't get one intentional walk that year that he broke Babe Ruth's record, because if they intentionally walked him, guess who's coming up next? Mickey Mantle. He was getting pitches to hit. Okay, kind of a little bit the way Juan Soto and Aaron Judge played out this year. Juan Soto was hitting in front of Aaron Judge. That was perfect. Juan Soto was going to get pitches to hit a lot of the time, because if they walked him, then they'd have to face Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge was in a slump, yeah, they might pitch around Soto, figuring Judge is in a bad spot, because Judge is a little streaky. When Judge is going great, he's invincible, but when he's kind of like on a little bit of a slump, you could get him out. So then you could pitch around Soto, like they kind of did in the playoffs at times. But imagine had it been the opposite, and Mickey Mantle was hitting in front of Roger Maris. Roger Maris wouldn't have broken Babe Ruth's record. There's no way. Just absolutely no way. And who knows, maybe Mickey Mantle would have. But this isn't to diminish Roger Maris, who was a terrific player, who the year before he broke the record, him and Mickey Mantle got into the closest MVP race in baseball history, when Maris edged him out. But Mickey won 3 MVPs, outside of that. And at 1964 was his last hurrah, James. The Yankees won the pennant. They lost in 7 games to the Cardinals. Mickey Mantle hit 35 homers, knocked in 111 runs, hit 303. Then the last 4 years were hard to watch. He was a broken down player, and he was a big fan favorite. He would hit between 20 and 25 homers. He'd hit about 250 or so. His last year, he hit 236 and 18 homers, and he retired at the end of the 1968 season. The sad part about it, and this is what bothered Mickey Mantle the most, because he hung around 4 extra years, his batting average dipped under 300 to 298. That's what always bothered Mickey Mantle a lot, not retiring as a 300 hitter, which he really was in his prime. But you hang around too long, that's what happens. And off the field, Mickey Mantle had issues. He had issues. He was never friendly with the fans. Never friendly with the fans. It wasn't his, he wasn't the type who would ever acknowledge the fans. And he was buddies with Billy Martin. Mickey was a big drinker. He would be carousing around, and, in his personal life, left a lot to be desired, which he admitted, late on, in life. He should have been better in that regard, not to use him as a role model. Mickey was a humble guy, who didn't have much of an ego. But he could have done things differently, and he was injured all the time. And that's that famous line that he had, because his, family, they worked in the mines, and they breathed in all the poison constantly, and they didn't live that long. And Mickey didn't think he would. And he said, if I had known I would have lived this long, I would have taken better care of myself. That was Mickey Mantle's line that he had. And legendary player. Short list of legendary players, but when you talk about the most popular baseball players of all time, I mean, Mickey Mantle, is towards the top easily, still to this day.
Jack, it's funny that you mentioned at the tail end of his career, those numbers. Look, man, it must speak volumes on how much of a great player he was, because those numbers for some average players, that's their peak, and 25 homers and, a 250 batting average. I mean, some guys dream of having those type of numbers because they can't get that.
You listen to me patiently. I just want to make one quick point. The numbers then add to them, because when a guy hit 25 homers then, it's like hitting 33 homers today. You know what I mean? The numbers like are bigger there. It's more of an
Right.
impact. Yeah, I'm sorry I
Right.
cut in. Listen
No,
patiently
it's
with
okay.
me.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, I mean, because I mean, obviously, you have a far greater knowledge of baseball than I do, man, and I really appreciate listening to everything you say about it. I just think, wow, that's just impressive, and I also give kudos to a person like this because look, I think at the end of the day, we're all human, and who knows if the guys? I mean, you say he drank, he could have been an introvert. He probably couldn't stand the limelight. A lot of times, I think like to Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders, his persona is a lot different than the person he is outside of football. I bought his book years ago when he almost had an issue about which, unfortunately, you know, unaliving. They can't say the words online anymore. Unaliving himself, and he was really depressed. And so you think you a lot of times people equate what a person really is in real life with what their persona is in entertainment and sports. And who knows what he might have been dealing with. I mean, whether he was, like you said, drinking and stuff like that. I'm not making an excuse for him because, again, at the end of the day, you elected to choose this life and go into that sporting arena and deal with the media. So you got to take the good with the bad. But at least he acknowledged it. Like you said, towards the end, he could have done a little bit better with there. I mean, it's because some people go to their grave not acknowledging anything about their life and having any contrition or anything like that. So,
Well,
I
they're
mean,
public personalities, James. I don't know whether we should consider this or not. Someone's personal life, what they do. Where's the line that it stops? For example, if you're a fan of the New Orleans Saints, okay? And if you hear one of the players, you find out he's a wife beater, are you going to be rooting for him Sundays? You want your team to win, but where's the limit? And then someone might say, well, what takes place off the field should be irrelevant. You shouldn't consider that. You should just pay attention to the football. I mean, Mickey Mantle was, I don't want to say a deadbeat dad, but he ignored, basically he admitted later on he wasn't there for his kids, at all in any way. The way Mickey, and the ironic part about it, Mickey Mantle's dad and him were extremely close. That's the ironic part about it.
okay.
And Mickey Mantle just wasn't accommodating to fans. Just wasn't
Yeah.
accommodating in any way. I wouldn't acknowledge him. I and it's up to the individual player, like what they want to do, who they want to acknowledge. Look, I saw a warm clip on social media, which I got a big kick out of. It probably took place last year. Freddie Freeman had his little kid, and they were out trick or treating. And they came across another little kid who had on Freddie Freeman's jersey and his number on. He was Freddie Freeman for Halloween. So Freddie Freeman said, "Hey, are you me?" And then he asked the parent, for the photo to take the picture so they could have it. And the parent, you could tell, was all excited, nervous, like, oh, yeah, they're bumping into the guy itself. Stuff like that's absolutely like heartwarming,
It is.
and
I agree with that. I mean, but not every person is the same person like that. I mean, there's so many different personalities. A lot of times some people, like I said, Freddie Freeman made sure to make that time, and he had a kid. That is heartwarming. That's what you want to see, but that's not always the case. And again, I'm glad that a person like Mickey Mantle could at least acknowledge it. Some people, like I said, won't even acknowledge that that was an issue or anything like that. I mean, and I don't know how long has he been gone? When has he passed?
oh man, I don't remember the exact year. You could Google it up long ago, but the thing is, they had that great movie. If I don't know whether you have time to watch these movies, but I would recommend this movie for you to see if you have time whenever in the future. 61, it's called, by Billy
Oh, yeah.
Crystal. You could get it on YouTube. It shows
Mm-hmm.
about the home run race in 1961, Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, and it gives you like a good idea, how Mickey was, because Billy Crystal, major Yankee fan, big Mickey Mantle fan, but he basically portrayed them the right way. And even the actors look like Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. It's like scary. Wow, how did they get two guys to to look like the actual guys. Too. You could, I mean, it's just great movie, great movie.
Yeah, I've heard it.
There.
I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen it.
Okay, James, baseball free agency. Have you been following it at all?
I'll be honest with you, no, I have not. But I understand. I listen. The Juan Soto's at the top of the list,
Yeah.
And so you can tell me what's going on with him. I haven't heard. I don't think there's any major moves has happened yet, right?
I kind of wonder sometimes. I like to play GM. I like to play agent. I'll tell you, I don't know what to make out of the Juan Soto thing as a Yankee fan. A part of me will be relieved losing him. He's not replaceable, number one. You can't replace his bat in the lineup. He's great. He's great. He plays hard. He's a team player. He embraces the fans. The fans embrace him. Nothing. I have only good things to say about Juan Soto, but the price is, gets to be crazy. You have to know how much you're going to pay a guy. You're going to make him the highest paid Yankee in history, regardless, on a very long-term deal. But these teams keep bidding against one another. They're shooting the price up. And you're talking about something like a 15-year deal. You want to give a guy a 15-year deal. He's 26 now till he's 41. And I think with all these contracts, James, maybe you could think of an example for any other player. Is it really going to be worth it? How many guys are fulfilling that contract once they get up to be about 40? Now, there are rare exceptions. If you signed LeBron when he was age 26, someone said sign him to a 15-year contract. At age 26, they think, no, when the guy gets to be about 36, he'll be losing it. It would have been worth it with LeBron, now we see. But with Soto, it's like an albatross. And some people are comparing him to Ohtani. Sign him this and that. But the difference is Ohtani is a major box office draw. People like to see Soto, but if Soto's on the Yankees and the Yankees are in town, for now the town team, it's the name of the Yankees, the lure of the Yankees, where people come to see them. And Aaron Judge's name, at least right now, has a little more impact than Soto's for a fan out of town. Oh, I want to see Aaron Judge with the Yankees. They're going to say that sooner than they would say, I want to see Juan Soto with the Yankees. Now, Soto is great. I'd love to have him back. Personally, I think he's going to the Mets because the owner, Steve Cohen, has incredible wealth. Steve Cohen can afford to lose $1 billion in his baseball operation. He can afford to lose it. The Yankees have a completely different attitude. They don't feel, baseball's where they make their money. And even though they're very wealthy, they can't have the attitude, oh, we can afford to lose a lot of money. We don't care. They're also running it like a business. They have to run it like a business. And this is what bothers me, James, about fans. Fans will say, just give them this, just give them that. Fans play with monopoly money, and it's frustrating because fans just don't get it. They just don't get it, and then they start second guessing afterwards when things don't work out. It's like in the sport of boxing. After the fight's over, everyone predicted it the right way. You hear all these people coming out just like I thought it was going to be, just like I predicted. And the guy I do the show Glove Fist with, Frank Laterzo, he once put up an angry post. He says, make your predictions right now, because I don't have any patience for anyone who's going to say after the fight what they thought was going to happen. I want to hear it right now or just shut up. And that's the way to do it. Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Make a prediction. If you're wrong, it's okay. You're wrong. But don't afterwards. And we hear that all the time. These play-by-play guys in the NFL, after players run and it fails, or coach makes a decision and it backfires, they're going to say, I don't understand how he could have made that decision, blah, 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 blah. Like if Dan Campbell is making a decision, like in the Packer-Lion game, where James, he's gambling beforehand, Call them out on it. Say this is dumb. It makes no sense. Really rip into them. But these commentators, they'll wait till the play's over. Then if the play's successful, they'll go very easy. But if it's not, they'll come down hard.
A lot of people, like the fans, also consider people like Dak Prescott to be a bad contract because of him getting paid that amount of money. I disagree with that. I think he got paid what the market value was, and that he's a franchise quarterback. You know how hard it is to get a franchise quarterback? It's one of the most difficult things. I mean, besides getting a great left tackle as well. It's just hard. It's just very difficult to find somebody that you can have for 10, 15 years to play lights out, at least 5 to 7 of those years being a peak during the peak years. It's really hard to do. So I totally disagree with fans like you saying that, they should pay the guy, but don't really understand how the business is ran. I mean, if the guy's getting paid is what it is. I think Juan Soto, like you said, if he goes to the Mets, will he be a key piece to?
He'll be the face of the franchise. And
aren't they good? They were good this past season, right?
Excuse me?
I said they were very good this past season, right?
Oh, they came 2 games away from going to the World Series. It's going to be hard for them to achieve that again. They lost some starting pitching, but they signed Frankie Montas, Clay Holmes, who they're going to put in their rotation. So they might be okay, but there's several teams that could go to the World Series. Getting back Dak Prescott, you used him as an example. Jimmy Johnson recently said, I never would have given him the contract. And Jimmy Johnson gave good reasons why. But where was Jimmy Johnson when it was in the news all that time before he signed the contract saying, no, I wouldn't give him the contract because of so-and-so. Now that it's done and Dak is hurt, he's on the sidelines. Jimmy Johnson is saying it was a bad contract. What happens if Dak was in playing and he was lighting it up? Jimmy Johnson would probably be silent. But I understand Jimmy Johnson's logic. Jimmy Johnson's logic was, let Dak play to free agent. He's not the best quarterback in the league. Another team he's not going anywhere in all probability. And you could give him the money then. No one's going to really outbid you at the time. Not for Dak Prescott. He's not Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Let's be honest about it. He's just not as good as those guys. And now was the logic, with Jimmy Johnson, with Dak Prescott. But then when Dak was unsigned, you had critics like Stephen A. Smith starting to play the race cards, and he signed Tony Romo to a contract. I wonder why, and like he's inferring because Romo was white and Dak is black, he didn't want to give him the money. I mean, come on. I mean, Stephen, and I love Stephen A. Smith to listen to him. I think Stephen A. is a good guy to hear on the air. Okay, I think Stephen A. likes to play to an audience who wants to maybe hear what he has to say, and I find him entertaining and knowledgeable a lot of the time too. But the narrative. What the narrative bothers me in sports too, with players and coaches, James. I don't know what you think about it. If you sign a contract, let's say for 4 or 5 years, why, when you have a year left on the contract, is everyone pressuring you as an owner to sign that person to an extension? You're not obligated to do that. They still got a year on their contract. And when their contract is done, you could either resign them then, or they're in a good bargaining position. So the player feels, I don't want to play unless you sign me to an extension, but you got time on your contract. That's what I kind of like what the Jets did with Hassan Reddick. Screw him. You got a contract. You want to hold out? He had no leverage. And they kept him out, and finally he came back. He lost the money. He hasn't done anything for the Jets.
Right.
He's coming back. And he's not going to do much on the free agent market, not coming off this year, that's for sure.
Hey, I want to go back just a moment, and I'll come to this in just a moment. But go back to that Dak Prescott segment that you mentioned. At the level of player, I think Prescott. There's to me that in the elite level, there's mainly three quarterbacks, in my opinion. There's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. That's the top elite quarterbacks in the league. I don't see anybody in that one-day player. Now, the next level, I would put Dak Prescott in that level, and so you're still going to get the amount of money, command the amount of money, because he is. I mean, again, the season that he came off of prior to that was really elite. It was really elite. I mean, he had, but it didn't equate to 12 wins, but it didn't equate to playoff success. I mean, as a collective team. So he's got to take responsibility for that as well, because I mean, he wanted the money. So I just think that I don't know about the Stephen A. Smith's segment. I don't know, if there was a race card he was pulling, but I mean, to me, he eventually supplanted Romo because he was the better quarterback.
Oh yeah, he was. But Stephen A's thing was Jerry Jones was so anxious to sign Tony Romo. Why not Dak Prescott? But Dak was under contract. That's my thing. Let Dak go to free agency. And someone's going to pick him up and pay him the big money, because someone's going to need, a top of the line quarterback. But you're right about the three quarterbacks who you mentioned: Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, teams absolutely have to retain guys like that. And then you get the second level quarterbacks who are very good. But if you took Dak Prescott out of Dallas and you flip flopped him with Jalen Hurts, it would be mostly the same. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. I mean, I can make an argument, and it's debatable. I could say Justin Herbert's better than Dak Prescott. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We're not going to argue that. But
sure.
I could say Joe Burrow is better. I mean, if Jerry Jones could flip right now, let's say he wants to change the culture in Dallas, and he could trade Dak for Joe Burrow. If you're sitting in Jerry Jones' seat, and you get a call from the Bengals, we'll give you Joe Burrow for Dak Prescott, you might make the deal.
Yeah. Oh, no, without a doubt. Look, and I probably should. You can almost put Joe Burrow in the same category as the top end. Well, I mean, a little bit higher than that second level. I probably left him out. I wasn't really thinking. Joe Burrow probably could be number 4 in that elite quarterback competition as well. I just think that he's a little bit above the other competition that's down there. But now replacing Dak Prescott with Jalen Hurts, I don't know. I think Jalen Hurts, they're figuring out ways to utilize his talents as a quarterback with Philadelphia. I don't know. I think Dak could play with less. I think Dak could play with less talent than. I
like Dak a little more than I like Jalen right now. I mean, that myself. But then you get someone like Tua, who still has upside, a lot of room to improve with Miami, but with the concussions, I wouldn't go near him. I mean, Dak is a very good quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback in the league. But then you have the young Bucks who are coming up. Like, give them time. We'll see how good they're going to be. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, who's, having a good year there. And we haven't seen J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix, the other two drafted.
No, I don't agree that they that you have.
Come on, Ray. Josh Allen is great. You put Josh Allen has taken the whole Buffalo Bill team and he's put them on his back this season. Come on.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what Richard is trying to say is that Dak Prescott is probably similar to those guys in that regard. I just don't. I mean, look, Dak Prescott was taken fourth. I mean, he was taken in the 4th round. He's exceeded expectations in regards to who he is, and he's going through the ceiling in regards to the potential. But I think he's capped now. I don't think you can really do much more with him than what he's doing. Those guys, to me, it seems like they have another notch, a level that you can get to. I mean, but with that argument, though, let's go back to basketball. We're talking about. I know we got a little bit of time, but
about a minute.
Yeah, Michael Jordan versus Charles Barkley and those other guys. It just Jordan was in their way. So Patrick Mahomes was just in the way of a guy like Josh Allen. I mean, like I said, that 13-second 2021 divisional round, he came back and won. But Josh Allen played the best game. Same with Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying there, but sometimes it's circumstances. It depends the circumstance, that the player's in. And so, but Dak got his contract, and he's the Cowboy franchise quarterback until they draft someone at some point. But it was a lot of fun, these memory things. And James, you're a lot like Mac. You're durable. You could take whatever's thrown at you, from my way. So kudos to you. Okay, had a lot of fun, and see you tomorrow on the football show, 8 a.m. Eastern time. I